really appreciate that introduction. I'm not sure how I can live up to it, but to put it mildly, I've been busy over my lengthy career. So let me add my good morning to everyone. All right, we're still here. You know a little bit about me. Let me see if I can learn a little bit about you. Folks that are in business, you're actively operating a business today. If you would, just show of hands. Oh my, quite a lot. And how about folks that are thinking about starting a business, and you're here to learn something today? Again, show of hands. Okay, just a few, all right. And some of you didn't raise your hands. I'd be here, maybe here for the coffee and the donuts, yeah? Well, in any case, when I was first asked to speak, this is actually quite a change for me. When I was first asked to speak, it was, I thought, to the commission. And I thought that's probably 15, 20 members, something like that. We'd have a fairly intimate conversation about my business and the effects of all of the things that Chairman McKay talked about on the business. But I was told that I should talk to Dr. Murphy. He would give me the specifics. And so when I got with Dr. Murphy, my first question was, well, what should I talk about? What would you like to hear? And he said, share your journey. Talk about things you do again, maybe things that you would do differently, and somewhere in there throw in some pearls of wisdom. That'll be up to you, whether or not anything I have to say rises to that particular level. And then he went on to say, there'll be 200 to 300 participants, very different from the 15 or so I thought of. There'll be VIPs here. And oh, by the way, we're going to televise this. And you're the keynote. So I thought, okay, I'm a head-down business person, folks, like most of you in this room. That's what I do, and I've done it for a lot of years, and it's, as you know, a lot of hard work, and as I said, I characterize myself as heads down, certainly not as a speaker. And delivering a keynote, I have to admit, this is the first keynote that I've ever delivered. And I have to further admit that I didn't even know what a keynote was necessarily. So I consulted Dr. Google, like everybody. And Dr. Google said the keynote sets the tone for what comes after. Sets the tone for what comes after. So I'm going to set the tone right now. The best thing I ever did in my professional life was start a business. So it's a wonderful opportunity for me, for you, and all of you that are in business. You understand exactly what I'm talking about. Fairfax County is home. I went to Fairfax County schools. My brother, who works with me, and my sister, who is an analyst in our computer department, we all went to Fairfax County schools. Our kids went to Fairfax County schools. We live in Fairfax County. I live in Clifton. So we're about as, at least Fairfax and Northern Virginia centric as you possibly could be. The community, working with the community, working within the community, doing what we can to give back to the community. That's a very special part of owning a business, period. I think in any community, but certainly here in Northern Virginia. There are financial benefits, there's no question about that. I've been doing this for a long time, so it's certainly been financially beneficial to my family. But the totality of it has really been just an enormous benefit to me and to my family, and that's why I say it's the best thing that I ever did. And I just add one other thing, and that is I am really grateful, as I suspect most of you are, that we live in a country that facilitates the development of small business, the encouragement of entrepreneurs, assistance with startups, and just the celebration of small business in general. I've done quite a bit of traveling in my time, and my sense is there's few countries that facilitate the growth and the very presence of small business like the United States of America. So now I got to talk about these things that Dr. Murphy asked me to speak to. I'm going to give you 54 years in 15 minutes. And forgive me if it sounds a little bit like a pitch for the Guernsey organization. I really don't mean it to be that way, but it is the frame of reference from where I come. In 1971, I started a Royal Typewriter dealership. Show of hands, how many people know what a typewriter is? There's a few of you that don't. It's a keyboard. That's effectively what it is. It's a keyboard with a lot more features than what the old typewriter had. But that typewriter was the centerpiece of the office world. If you didn't have a typewriter, you couldn't have an office. It was that important. And so I embarked on that. I mentioned to you my best decision. My worst decision professionally was the way I started the business. So I started the business with $234 and a stapler. That's all I had. $234 doesn't go very far. Back in those days, I really wasn't conversant on what a balance sheet was. I didn't realize the importance that it played in starting a business. I know now, but there were some really rough years there as I tried to develop that balance sheet so it could support a thriving business. Now, 12 years later or thereabouts, typewriters became obsolete. Computers entered the picture, and the typewriter very quickly was obsolete. And I'm getting to a point here that I think is a real key, and that is the pivot in the business. We pivoted at that time to word processing and document management product. And I don't know how long that lasted. I forget. Probably don't even want to remember. It didn't last long because enhanced computer capabilities ended the life of that equipment as well. So it was time for another pivot. And then we went into office supplies, just general office supplies. And I thought that was the product category for the ages. I mean, every workplace needed supplies. That would never end. And then came something called the cloud. And all of a sudden, paper product, the demand for that diminished pretty significantly. And with that went toner and ink and binders and staplers and paper clips and all of it. So that particular category has been in secular decline now for quite some period of time. And it's fairly stable at the moment, but there's no doubt that it will continue to decline. So in our company, we started thinking, okay, what's the next pivot? And this time we decided we wanted to get out of just pure product, but we wanted to move into categories that were adjacent to what we knew, which was the workplace. And when I think categories and what we knew and added value, I'm thinking of service, I'm thinking of expertise, training, equipment, general supplies to run those products. That's what we started to focus on, and that's what we've been working on for the last 15 years or so. We have a very robust break room program. We install break room product largely throughout our trading market in the Mid-Atlantic, but we also handle customers like Discovery Communications, Airbus, SAIC. We handle them throughout the United States. That's equipment. It has to be fit to an application. It has to be maintained, and there are supplies that go along with it. And I'm thinking espresso machines, barista-type stuff, just anything that you might imagine in a break room. We build them out to include the furniture side of it. We then moved into janitorial and facilities. Once again, that was a product line that required expertise, fitting the products to the application. And we brought that expertise to the benefit of our customers. We not only sold the machines, the things that hygienically take care of wherever it is that we work, but we sold the supplies, or sell the supplies for those units as well. We do the repair and maintenance on it, so it's kind of full service. And we needed to do that to differentiate ourselves from other product suppliers. As an example, we compete against Amazon, Staples, Office Depot, Walmart, all of those. They sell products. We sell what we believe to be a turnkey solution in all those areas. It remains to be seen as to how that's going to work out. After 54 years, I don't kid myself. Things change, people change, consumer preferences change, markets change, and we in business have got to change with that. My point here is that we evolved. And the nice thing about a small business, I sometimes think it's really a benefit to small business, is that we're typically very agile. The whole notion of being able to turn on a dime. And the consequence of that is that maybe some of our larger competitors don't have that level of agility, and maybe we can do it better, faster than what they can. Today, the Guernsey organization is billed as everything to every workplace. We're in public and private enterprises. We serve those companies. Healthcare, education, traditional offices, even retail, like auto dealerships. We do a lot in that area. And we do it with the product categories that I just mentioned to you, all a function of having pivoted over 54 years to something that at least continues to work. The Guernsey company, just as a feel for it, back pre-pandemic, we were 270 employees or so, $100 million in revenue. That's what we looked like then. Post-pandemic, we're clawing back. We're about 80% of where we were before. You know, all of the drama that's going on in Washington and all the other things that were a byproduct of the pandemic, some of those issues are still there, and we're working our way through them. But I mentioned agility and the ability to keep your top line, your revenue flowing by moving quickly as the market moves. I think there's also the headwinds that business people, small business people, large business people, it doesn't matter. You have to be very aware of the headwinds. This is a stat that, I don't know, I don't necessarily want to share it, but it's true. In my 54 years, folks, I've been through 27 downturns. 27. Some of them were short recessions. Some of them were rather long recessions. Some of them related to the financial world or maybe the real estate world. There was the Great Recession in '09. That was a peach. And then there's this thing called the pandemic. Who saw that coming? Right? I mean, I sat in March 18th, 2020. I'm sitting in front of my computer, and my dashboard says, your revenue has just been cut in half. That's a $100 million company just in half. And I got all the overhead, I've got all the people, and I'm in shock, quite frankly, trying to think, well, what do I do from here? And you all lived that. I mean, you know what that was like. It was, you know, it was going to end in 3 months, then it was going to end in a year, and then maybe another year, and then yet another year, and I guess 3.5 years later, it finally came to an end. A real struggle. And I would say, I mentioned the balance sheet and the importance that it plays. The balance sheet is so critically important in starting a business. And it's also critically important in maintaining a business, even downsizing a business during very, very difficult times. So the point that I make here is that there is a need to prepare for whatever might come in the way of a downturn. What we learn in Econ 101 is that it's an absolute that you're going to enter a downturn. You don't know when, and you don't know how long, and you don't know how deep, but I would tell you from my experience, a strong balance sheet will help carry you through the inevitable, because it truly is just that, the inevitable. So I think from the Guernsey organization, and I hope the same is true for you, although I don't suspect that there's too many people in this room that have been in business as long as I have. But in 54 years, we've read the market right. We've pivoted. I don't know in the most timely fashion, but we've pivoted in the right direction. Our differentiation strategies have worked. Who we are, we learned who our customers were, we learned the lane that we fit in, the ones that would be most attracted to us, and we discipline ourselves to stay in that lane. But as I look at it, it's you know, again, I'm always nervous every day. What's coming next? What it might be. Chairman McKay talked about, I mean, we are really on a roller coaster now. What's coming next? Maybe good, maybe bad. Market's up, market's down. Interesting times, to say the least. John Rohn, a author and motivational speaker, he passed in 2009. He had an interesting quote. He said, "Success is not made of grandstand plays, but rather of doing ordinary things extraordinarily well." And as I think back on that in my company, I would submit that things like agility, pivoting, persevering, differentiating, remaining close to the customer, I think those are just all ordinary things. And I think it's safe to say that if you do those ordinary things well, your business will prosper. It will thrive and prosper. Despite all of the economic headwinds, you would do it well. Now, the last thing, I had actually planned on ending with a joke, but my wife pleaded with me. She said, "David, you don't have good jokes. And you're really not funny, David. And oftentimes you forget the punchline." So I thought, well, that's true, actually. So I'm not going to end with a joke. I'm going to end with another quote. Actually heard this first from our senior senator from Virginia, Mark Warner, a longtime friend. He was the first I heard it from, but actually it dates back to Voltaire, the French writer and philosopher. It's really simple, but it informs my life, both in a professional and in a personal sense. And the quote is simple. It's just, "Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good." Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. My experience with business change, now think AI, it's accelerating at an accelerating rate. There's never enough time, I think, to find the perfect solution. Businesses that are behind the curve, think Blockbuster, likely don't survive, and in that one case, they were left behind. In my view, chasing perfection could well be the enemy of agility and overcoming headwinds. My take is find the good and move on. Thank you, folks. Great to be with you this morning.